Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Strawberry Hill Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Simmons, and we, of course, are at the Shop Cigar Lounge like we are every episode. And if you haven't got down here, please do. Live jazz music every weekend, cool atmosphere, so on and so on. Enough about me. But before we get started, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you follow us. We're on Facebook, Mike on the Mic. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. Hit us up. And so today we have, is it the co-owner? Or are you the guy?
Co-founder.
Co-founder of Domain Cigars, which we are smoking right now.
Yep.
Mr. Daniel Lance.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, man.
Appreciate you putting this on, Mike. It's a heck of a production. It's a really beautiful production.
Yeah, people are always like, I'll do your podcast. And you get here, they're like, oh, wow.
Cameras.
Yeah,
I feel very important here.
But it ain't me. It's the man behind the camera that runs everything.
But, so a little bit about Domain. So I moved to Nicaragua 5 years ago, and over 5 years ago now. Junkie that moved to the poppy field, wanted to learn more about cigar making, wanted to kind of fill that void. I had worked in retail, as you do, in a cigar shop. You own a cigar shop. I was working behind the counter for somebody else's cigar shop for over a decade. And what ended up happening was, I became really infatuated with cigars and wanted to see what the manufacturing side was and really understand it a lot better. So whenever I moved out there, I knew half the community, befriended Esteban Disla, which is my current business partner today. Him and I, through a series of things that took place over 5 years, wound up building the first fully vertically integrated cigar company in more than 30 years.
That's crazy. That's awesome, too, because when you told me that, I was like, that's unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really unheard of to start out vertically integrated today, where you're actually growing your own tobacco, laying it down your own polones, running your own factory and your own brand.
So did you, is that what you wanted to do, to begin with, or just kind of fell in your lap, oh, we can do this, so let's do it?
It all just kept falling together the way that, Esteban and Raul started growing tobacco 5 years ago. I came along probably 2 years after that. There really wasn't an opportunity for me to enter early. Whenever Esteban left his factory, he was the co-founder of a factory called Nicasueño, which makes some pretty notorious cigars in the industry.
Yeah.
Whenever he was working over there as chief of production and co-founder, he had creative differences, decided to leave. I happened to be the first person that he even talked to about all this, right? Whenever it was going on. And, I just asked him, well, how about, you want your friend to feel useful. So I go, well, how about you make a cigar for me? And he agreed, but I didn't really know I didn't know if I was buying one cigar. I didn't know if I was buying, a factory or any of this kind of stuff. But he had always had a design for how all this was going to work out, what he wanted it to look like. And he had actually sent two of his children before to the United States to learn English and learn the American cigar market. So he's been working towards this vision for 40 years, and I really just came in to fill in the pieces that, were kind of voids for him, just not having enough time in the United States, not being an English speaker, running businesses here. So, so that's in a nutshell. I mean, that's kind of Domain Cigars, but it wasn't intentional. I didn't go out there to form a company. If anything, I knew how challenging, cigars are, and not only that, tobacco is. Tobacco is really damn hard. Yeah, we make it look really easy, but it's real damn hard. And I knew how challenging a lot of those things were, so I had no illusion that I was going to all of a sudden become an expert in this. You have to apprentice these things. It's, there's no YouTube video you can watch and then become an expert, right? No. There's a lot of things you can do. I mean, you can, you want to change a part on your car, it's not going to be a problem, right? But if you want to learn the intricacies of fermentation of tobacco, good luck looking that up. So you really need someone with Esteban's experience, both time and practice, because you think about it this way: every year during growing season, we get about 3 crops or so, 3 harvests we grow into the wet, we grow prime, and then we grow late.
Yeah.
We get about the 3 of those that we pull out of the fields. That's the entirety of experience you get that year. However much tobacco you're able to work in that period of time. We do about 1.5 million pounds of tobacco per year right now, which is an astronomical amount of tobacco for
it's a lot.
How small and new our brand is. But we're also working with a lot of partners on that. Some of the largest tobacco brokerages in the world now actually work with us, and we contract with them and maintain really good relationships with them to help them achieve things in the Condega valleys that they wouldn't otherwise.
So how did you meet Esteban? It's kind of like...
Yeah, so I believe we met first at the trade show, actually at PCA, very briefly. And then whenever I moved to Nicaragua, I moved to Esteli. It was kind of a funny story. So I went down to visit a friend
in Nicaragua. He would take a yearly trip. He was a retailer formerly. He would take a yearly trip down to Esteli. So he had been asking me several years, hey, come out. And so I finally agreed. I go out there, and I love it. I even told him then, I was like, don't let me buy a house my first trip. I had to go to London for like a week or so after that. I was supposed to go to Jordan. I got kicked out of Jordan because I had to enter through the military base. So there was a visa issue where I couldn't enter. And so I... like
I'm standing,
Jason Bourne over here.
Yeah. I'm standing in. So my background originally is in cybersecurity, industrial cybersecurity. So that's like power grid cybersecurity and, stuff like that, manufacturing cybersecurity. So, so I'm standing in Heathrow, and I called up my boss at the time at the startup that I was working on, and I go, do you care where I live? And he goes, not at all, as long as you can get to an airport. So it was $3,000 to fly back to Nicaragua, which I had just been at, and it was $5,000 to come back here to Kansas City. So I hopped on a plane, flew back to Nicaragua, and got a house, and that's kind of the rest is history, really. It was pretty impulsive. So, jeez. But not married, no kids. So, ladies, no, I'm joking. But no, really, that was the only reason why it was even possible was just that. I had some flexibility in my life due to my career and work at the time.
Yeah. So from start to finish, like, you met Esteban, talked about wanting to do this cigar company and everything. And then, so I guess like from start to like when you began it with until when you came out with your first cigar, like what did that process look like?
So, we had the tobacco growth. We really had the opportunity to first start tasting some of the tobaccos, I would say more than 2 years ago, because you're 18 to 36 months depending on the tobacco that you need to actually finish that tobacco. We were able to taste some of what we had worked on, but that's the thing is, like, because we were starting up so massively, and we were running this company for the last 5 years, in its totality, as if it were operating with customers and all of this kind of thing. It was only really about 2.5 years ago, almost 3, that we were able to even start tasting the tobacco. So we, for years we're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars per year into this, and we have no idea what we're getting out of it, right? And that's part of one of the reasons why this hasn't really been done in 30 plus years. During the 90s cigar boom, of course, you had a lot of people going to Dominican Republic and Honduras and Nicaragua and laying down a lot of money because they saw the potential to turn that tobacco into cash immediately, right? That is not obvious in our current economic situation here in the States. So we knew that it was going to be, half a decade or so of investment with maybe another half decade or so of trying to pay ourselves back on some of that investment. So, so we knew we were committing to like probably a 10-year project, up to a 10-year project, just to get the company into sort of a flow state, and we're still building. So yeah, in total, Domain Cigars now, I mean, our official founding year was 2023. Really, we were working on it all the way through 2022, 2023, and now in 2024. So it has been in progress for quite a while. You need almost 2 years, like on marketing alone.
Yeah. I think you guys did a good job of it too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Of course, neither of us have our bands on our cigars or anything.
It's right here. Don't worry.
They get stripped off quick, but yeah, like things like that. I mean, you can't just go hire a designer anywhere. I worked at retail, right? So I for too long saw a lot of new companies come to market and not try to actually solve any of the objectives. We wanted to solve as many objectives as possible for retailers, which is having things like barcodes. Imagine that, right? But it is something.
Yeah, you gotta think of every little thing because you're vertical, so it's like you're doing everything.
Yeah. Well, you gotta think about all these things, but then you also gotta execute them well, right? So yeah, barcoding and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that sounds innovative in the cigar business to make sure that everything has a barcode. Yeah. Right. So there's little things like that that's you have to go figure out how to do it properly. There's actually an international system for doing things like barcode registration. And a lot of people miss those things and it doesn't work out for them. Yeah. So anyway, when you're building something this big, though, I mean, you're inevitably like some things are going to get past you. Like one of the things, Neutron that you're smoking there, the foil on that, it uses a bronze kind of foil. Like there's little things like that we're not happy with, so we're making changes. We've hired new printers, and you're in a constant state of refinement. Yeah. So you're never really settled on anything. They always kind of escape at some point. It's like it's as finished as it can be today. We're gonna keep working on it. We're gonna keep going. The cigars are perfect. That's what's fantastic about having the entire Disla family, working on your project, because we have Raul Disla, which was former chief of production for Noxa, and several other titans in the business, AJ Fernandez and several others, and he's come over to work with us. We also have Kevin Baxter, which he was the master blender behind Asylum Cigars, and he's come to work with us. And of course, Esteban Disla himself, he was, former chief of production for Latin America Cigars, largest cigar company in all of Esteli. So if there's something that you need to get done in that valley, there couldn't be a better dream team of people to work with. So I'm just lucky because I get to sit back and smoke all the great stuff that they come up with. So
when you came out your first cigar, you have 2 cigars as of right now, right? So how did you come up with the name? Because I know it's kind of a cool story, because I can't even pronounce one of them.
Nugentropy.
Yes.
Yeah, Nugentropy. So Nugentropy, we wanted a name that, normally cigar names are in Spanish. You don't know how to pronounce them. We wanted a name in English that you also did not know how to pronounce. So it is a unique name. So Nugentropy is a new form of entropy. Entropy coming from entropia, or transformation in Greek, and it was first discussed by Nicholas Acusco, where they were under the impression that because entropy defines from high energy to low energy, or the decay of energy, that there must be a way that energy is created as a equilibrium, and that's where the first initial idea of Nugentropy came from. Later in the Oxford Dictionary in the 1700s, they came up with the idea of negative entropy, which is a different scientific concept. We're kind of leaning more into the biblical understanding of Nugentropy, but the entire series is called the Constellation, because we have so much tobacco, we have so much cigars. The series is called the Constellation, so we wanted to go as far and as wide as possible with all of our tobacco, all of our vitolas, and get feedback from people and steer the company in that way. We make today, 9 different sizes of each of those two cigars that we launched. We just recently also launched Entropy, which is 90% of the filler of New Gentropy.
Yeah.
And that cigar will be available probably at the end of November here in 2024. So late Q4 launch, but the retailers are telling me I got to have it. So I got to have it.
Happy for it.
Yeah. So we're getting really good feedback on that, and that's an interesting cigar in its own to talk about the sourcing of tobacco. But we also have another cigar called Neutron, which you're smoking.
Yeah.
Now, again, that goes into more of the scientific aspect of the constellation, where neutrons are all about balance, right? Neutrons have the ability to tweak and balance other atoms around them. So that particular cigar is a very balanced cigar. It has, I think, a lot of natural sweetness to it. You're smoking the Bellicoso Shaggy, His Excellency, which actually recently got a 94. We got a fantastic review on that cigar.
94, and which one?
Yeah, 94. That was in Cigar Public, I believe.
No shit.
Yeah, they give it a 94, which is great for a Shaggy Foot cigar that was like so close to getting canceled several times. We're pretty happy with how it performed. So, one of the big things that you notice whenever you're making cigars or smoking cigars actually is you end up having like a lot of cigars that taste pretty matchy, right? You go from manufacturer to manufacturer, okay, from brand to brand, okay, well, it's the same manufacturer, okay, well, it's the same tobacco source, and ultimately, you have maybe 5,000 brands or so in all of cigars. Like 5,000. We'll say it's an upper, and that could go up and down. But really only about 2% of those are breaking 1 million cigars under one name, under one mark, right? And to do that is a pretty special thing, and only maybe a dozen of those are breaking 1 million cigars under a single SKU.
Yeah.
Right. And I can name that list of companies on a very short list. I know who they are because it's so obvious what they buy that they're doing that volume on a handful of SKUs. So really, if you take just 2% of the industry, you got 100 companies. Well, PCA trade show for cigars is coming up here soon, and you're going to see about 100 companies on their trade show floor that really dominate probably 80+% or so of the real profitable market in premium cigars. So why is that? A lot of it has to do with access to tobacco. There's not a lot of additional access to tobacco unless you create your own, right? And that's what we did, and that's what Esteban knew would have to happen if he was going to continue and build, and if we wanted to make cigars for other people, and if we wanted to actually run this business the way that he's always envisioned it, right, which is a tobacco brokerage, a factory, and a U.S. brand as a satellite. So sourcing tobacco itself from third parties, you can absolutely do that if you have the money. Money talks. Like they'll let you make the commitment to the tobacco. But there are certain tobaccos, and the cigar I'm smoking actually, I've been busy blabbering, so it's been going out on me. But
you're good. I get the luxury of being able to smoke my cigar when I talk,
podcasts.
And then the people that are sitting on the other side, it's always
So, basically, it's U.S. grown broadleaf. That's what our Entropy cigar is. Where New Gentropy is Ecuador Habano. Over Nicaraguan filler and binder. So this is going to be a U.S. broadleaf over Nicaraguan filler and binder. And Entropy, needed U.S. Connecticut grown tobacco for this blend. I mean, it's how we originally blended the cigar. A lot of people are using Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania might be a little bit easier to get a hold of here or there, but it's not for the reasons that people generally think. It's often discussed that American tobacco, United States tobacco, is stock cut, and that's a labor reduction. That couldn't be further from the truth. If we actually saw a benefit in U.S. grown tobacco to doing priming. The priming is where you take one leaf at a time and you wait 5 days between primings before you start harvesting the next leaves. If we saw a benefit in that, we would do it. It is what we do in Nicaragua. We do a priming harvest at cosecha. And so basically, in the States, the tobacco grows so healthy, so rich, and it's been so acclimated here. The Americas was always the place to buy tobacco from.
Yeah.
It was always the highest quality tobacco, always came from, in particularly North America and the Virginias region. So you don't actually need to do priming like that because the tobacco already grows so uniform, so thick. So in the Connecticut River Valley, that's where everyone wants broadleaf. Broadleaf grows really rich. The flavor is fantastic. Very, very full. Has a natural sweetness to it. That's, it's for a cigar smoker, I would say it's as distinct as a cucumber for someone that doesn't smoke cigars. If you ever bite into a cucumber, there's no way to fake that authenticity, right?
It's a good way to put it.
That's kind of how Connecticut broadleaf is. So it was a goal of ours to use Connecticut broadleaf because we love U.S. grown tobacco. The question was, how do you get it? So what is the problem with broadleaf? Because some people are having an issue getting it. Other people like us seem to have it. Well, you can contract it, right? Your money talks. But the actual problem with broadleaf today is you're competing with a commodities market. And the commodities market is cigarettes. So per unit of cigarette, which a unit in cigarette terms might be a pound, it could be 2 pounds. It really depends on how they grade the unit.
Yeah.
But a unit goes for about $125, right? Per pound of finished broadleaf, which they do not finish in Connecticut, goes for about $40, right? $35 to $40. We have to go through about 30 to 60 pounds worth of that tobacco to generate about 1,000 cigars. So it's incredibly wasteful for us to use it in that, we have a lot more invested in the tobacco. So what happens with a commodities market like cigarettes is they can actually buy agricultural insurance, right? You can't buy agricultural insurance on cigar tobacco. So on cigar tobacco, because it's objective whether or not it's good quality, it's up to the grower, it's up to the buyer. You can't buy agricultural insurance. So what do? You have to go out and basically pay the farmer to grow that crop, and you have to basically assume all the losses, and that will pull down your price or your cost of that tobacco. The other complication is that because it's a commodities market in the States, they have to own something like 100 acres to get a tax stamp for like 10 acres, and that actually has a number of pounds that they're able to produce. So if they're growing cigarette tobacco, it's about a 13-month crop. They leave it on as long as possible to get it as heavy as possible, so they have the best yield. If they overgrow their yield, what they have a tax stamp for, then they have to take that off of future years. The problem with that is because they have agricultural insurance, if there's a storm or something in future years, right, then they could lose higher and higher amounts. Even a crop that is damaged for cigarette tobacco, insurance pays out higher than what cigar tobacco pays for a good crop. So if you're a farmer, tell me which one you're going to grow. You're going to grow cigarette tobacco.
Of course.
But some of those farmers we can persuade to also grow cigar tobacco. And that's really what you have to do is you have to work with somebody in the Connecticut River Valley that already has the labor, already has the facilities, because they have to have the barns and all that stuff to dry it. So that's really the big problem with U.S. grown Connecticut broadleaf is that right now we see so much pressure on the per unit cost. In some countries, it's going up 20, 30+% on cigarette tobacco. So we're really that tiny amount of space that we would grow on those existing farms, and we're talking a real tiny amount of space, guys. So compared to the cigarette guys, that's a $1 trillion industry. All of cigars is about 12 billion, which is such a small number. It's a tiny business. It's tiny. We're like the size of Mary Kay, the whole business. the whole business is, it's relatively tiny. So, but that said, I mean, that's what creates a complication. So when you're partaking in a cigar, sometimes, you don't realize that the actual cost is manipulated in some way by a commodities market that you're not even taking part in.
Yeah.
But you're a proxy to that market based on, again, the flavor and character and uniqueness of that tobacco that we have to procure to make something, special for you. So these are the things that, I get to learn from someone like Esteban that's been doing this all of his life. Mm-hmm. And, I get to sound real smart whenever I repeat it on a podcast, right? But but the reality is this is exactly what I wanted out of this situation.
Yeah.
I wanted to absorb what this side of this business was, because I've just, always loved cigars, loved tobacco. So as you do too.
Yeah. So do you think you could ever replicate what you do in Nicaragua, like here in the States?
For growing
anything? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Because I understand like why people grow in Nicaragua, the Dominican, and stuff like that. But I always wonder because there's some people that I know Corey Frisbee.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to grow up in Wisconsin now. It's just like you think that there will ever be a market but ever be where there actually is like people that are actually starting to try to grow and do everything vertical here?
Yeah, I think it's going to have a lot to do with probably corporate taxes, manufacturing taxes. Unfortunately, they always say, if you run your business around taxes, you'll work less and make more money. So that's really the limitation, and it always has been. This kind of brings me into another topic, right? Is Cuban tobacco, right? I've always referred to it as the first wave of cigar makers, and that was what defined our industry, and it's really defined a lot of the marketing around our industry, especially. But the original Cuban growers, they were only ever 9%. 9% of all of the cigars consumed in the United States had Cuban tobacco in them. So what actually happened to the cigar industry? Because we've long heard this story that all the cigars were from Cuba, and but they were all rolled in Ybor City in West Tampa. Wisconsin had a big manufacturing base. Shout out to another company, Lovely Cigars out there. They actually are trying to rebuild a historic brand, and I love pieces of American history, American stories. I love those stories, and I hope they continue to be told. So shout out to those guys for doing that. But the thing is it was only ever 9% of the industry. So what actually happened to the cigar market? Why did cigar smoking go from being this big hot thing, turn of the century, to just about collapsing on itself through the 80s, right? Really, a lot of it had to do with the manufacturing base had to be moved from North America, where all the skill and talent was, into a area like Esteli, Nicaragua, which didn't even at the time have paved roads. We do now. We have beautiful roads now. We have very good city infrastructure compared to a lot of places, even some places in North America. But it really had to move all that. So it wasn't just a matter of cigar making had to go where the labor market was appropriate. It had to be ran around taxation, because taxation on manufacturing became so aggressive, and simple manufacturing, which is considered what we do, which is combining leaves. It's not simple, but it's considered simple manufacturing compared to silica, right? Making computer chips and things of that nature. So, we really had to move the entire industry at some point, after the 60s, in the mid 60s anyway. And that's really what happened was, whenever the Cuban embargo happened, due to, our governments having issues with each other, I don't think anyone has an issue with the Cuban people. I think they're fantastic people, all of them that I've met, fantastic people. But the issue really is that all of the inexpensive tobacco, the Cuban tobacco, was the cheap tobacco. Yeah. It was the offshore tobacco. The high-end or premium tobacco was always the U.S. grown tobacco. That hasn't changed. I mean, that has always been the case. It's the best quality tobacco you could buy is a U.S. grown cigar tobacco. So whenever you lost all of the inexpensive cigars off the market, a lot of your daily or regular cigar smokers, were basically left without anything to serve them. And not only that, their price increased dramatically due to the fact that tobacco supply wasn't there anymore. And subsequently, the handful of manufacturers that lasted through that whole period were ones that had found and maintained or cut deals with really cheap sources of tobacco, such as African Cameroon tobacco, which is not a bad tobacco by any means. It can be quite a good tobacco.
Yeah, and it kind of pricey too.
It became pricey.
Yeah.
It was actually the cheap tobacco. It was again going back to they had to find a replacement for Cuban tobacco. It wasn't because Cuban tobacco was the best. They had to find a price comparable option to maintain about 10% of the market. You look at any industry, you wipe out 10% of the market overnight. Sometimes that's the entire profit margin of whole companies, right? So that'll get you. And then just the fact that we had massive manufacturing changes. There was a lot of automotive companies that had a hard time during throughout the 70s and 80s and so on. So a lot of that was tax driven. It appears, and cheap source of tobacco. So what happened today with Cameroon was Cameroon had been at civil war for quite a long time now.
Yeah.
And they divided it, north and south. So it's north because they both want access. Both groups want access to the ocean. So it's divided north and south. And give your audience a picture of what Cameroon looks like. It's kind of like Tennessee. It's a long, skinny. So imagine Tennessee just divided north and south. So what ends up happening with their tobacco today? I was going to go out there and actually visit some of the tobacco fields, and I was advised not to, just because of danger and so on. But basically, there's so many, because there's the rebel factions that are at play. There's so many checkpoints that they have to go through, and there's so much red tape that they've put around the tobacco because they know it's a cash crop for them. It does a lot better than their corn, right? And you have other countries making calls trying to get it, so it skyrocketed the price over time, and people got more and more comfortable asking for more money to allow the Cameroon tobacco, the African Cameroon tobacco, to pass. And then, of course, a lot of the farmers had their land taken from them that had been growing and growing for third parties. And then other farmers had made pretty exclusive contracts, I would say, with certain manufacturers, and that really limited the supply of that tobacco on the market. Really, really limited it. So. Tobacco is it's unforgiving to grow, but what it really is it responds to everything you do. You put it in another climate, it grows a little different, right? It flavors a little different, right? You change environmental conditions, and it responds to that.
Yeah, I always compare tobacco almost like bourbon.
Yeah.
It's like you can put, your white lightning or your stuff in the barrel, and it just kind of depends on like where it's at in the factory, how long it's been in the barrel, and just like so many different variations of like how it can turn out. Same thing with tobacco. It's just like there's so many different ways that you can kind of change the taste and flavor of it.
When it happens fast, you know. So a lot of what we do, if you look at if you follow me on Instagram, Daniel C. Lance on Instagram, I have some videos on there of like what our whole operation looks like, pinned to the top, and basically a lot of what we're doing, like whenever we use the Thai grass and eucalyptus trees and all this kind of stuff for controlling airflow and natural insecticides, which is like the eucalyptus helps with mosquitoes and things of that nature.
I'm sure the mosquitoes are pretty big in Nicaragua.
No, they're actually not
that big.
Yeah.
I guess probably there's a lot.
Yeah, no, there could be, but one of the most common things that we have to worry about is things like aphids and so on, or another farmer close by growing a tobacco that is known for wreaking havoc on other tobaccos. That's Carrillo, for example, tends to have that issue where if someone's growing something around them, it cross contaminates genetics really quickly.
Geez.
And so there's things like that. But I mean, also just, another farmer, not even a couple miles away that normally would have a large crop, deciding not to put that crop in or losing it early for some reason. That can wreak havoc on you as well, because now you have an excess insect supply in the neighborhood that doesn't have anything to chew on.
Yeah.
Right? So there's all types of things in agriculture that can cause losses. And one of the big things that it's true about any farmer. I don't know any farmer that would do this otherwise. We always have the beautiful photos of the crops and everything like that. The actual secret is everything that we put in a polone, that we put in a drying barn, is always beautiful. It's always going to be the best that you can, because if it is torn up, if the crop is damaged in some way, we have so many compound losses from harvest onto the point that it actually goes into a cigar. We have so many losses built into that you can't afford to lay down tobacco that isn't the best already. You just really can't, because it'll turn into, C grade long filler. It'll turn into stuff that, just isn't workable in a AAA cigar. So, so that's, I guess a little talk about tobacco a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's.
So how do you like living in Nicaragua?
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So you lived there for you said over a year now? Or what?
5 years.
Longer? 5 years.
5 years. Yeah. 5 years. Yeah.
5 years. Jeez.
5 years. Yeah. So it's a long time. I never imagined myself being an immigrant to another country.
Yeah.
I really didn't. It was bad enough. I was already from California, but that's a California joke. Like California people understand. So I immigrated to Kansas originally, but. No, I didn't have any preconceived notion of what Esteli was going to be like. So I mean, picture this: like I didn't even look up like what the town looked like what the city looked like, or anything like that before I went there the first time. Obviously, whenever I moved there, like 2 weeks later, I had some idea.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, I didn't know if I was going to be, driving up on vineyards. I didn't know if I was going to be, no is the actual answer. None of it looks like that. It will at some point. I'm certain of that. So it's been fantastic. I mean, Nicaragua has treated me really well. They've been, really great to work with. There's a handful of issues that you have, when you're a, foreigner in a foreign land, trying to understand local people, local customs, local laws, all that type of thing. And that's going to create frustration for anyone, definitely. And Nicaragua is very unique, very, very unique on the international stage. They do for a tiny country, it's a tiny little country in Central America. We got about 2.5 million people today, like 1 million left. That's also another crazy thing. But for
a million left,
1 million,
like people just leaving.
Yeah, left. Yeah. They came to the States, but
I was going to talk about that. But
there's a lot of problems there too. I mean, you don't want these people up north. A lot of them we didn't want them down there. But the thing is. You're going to, being an immigrant in somewhere else, you have to think like an immigrant, I guess. And Esteban is as well. Esteban's originally from the Dominican Republic. My co-founder in Domain Cigars and Tabacalera family in Disla. He's originally from the Dominican Republic. He moved there 25 years ago. And he's since became a Nicaraguan citizen.
Yeah.
And we had to have him do that for tax purposes and so on, so he can sign checks. But But you know, it's challenging. It is without a doubt challenging. I always tell my Latino friends up here in the United States, you know, if you ever have a problem, you know, just press 2 for Spanish. You know, you know, you have so many bilingual speakers here in the States. We really don't have that in Nicaragua. We only, you know, we have 120 employees today, and only 2 of us speak English. And
so are you bilingual? Enough to get by?
I can navigate well. I can talk to our lawyer decently. I can speak with Esteban. When I start speaking to Esteban a lot, I sound really Dominican because he's Dominican, you know. So I start, you know, my accent starts to change and everything like that. And I realized that it was actually a good thing because it's like, okay, it's easier for people to understand you if you lean into the accent. But I felt uncomfortable for a long time because I felt like I was doing a parody of, you know, a friend of mine, you know, but it's actually helpful. It's really helpful. So, I didn't speak any other language before that. A little bit of Italian and so on, but that's, you know, it's like Italian's like 30% English already. So, yeah, it's a good time. You should come down. You should really come down.
I'm hoping to sometimes. Yeah. Cause I would love to get down there, that and the Dominican, just kind of visit some factories, kind of just visit the cities.
Dominican scene is it's a different scene today. You know, very very different scene. Not a, you know, again, we're a Nicaraguan cigar manufacturer, but of course, Esteban being from the Dominican Republic, it's concerning that you don't see as many generational cigar factories there in the Dominican Republic. It's concerning when you see kind of how they've chosen to run certain aspects of the Dominican cigar industry for cigar manufacturing.
Yeah. I feel like most cigar companies or factories are in Nicaragua anyway.
Well, and that's going to be a trend that's going to continue for several reasons. I mean, when you look at those factories, I mean, they're having an issue getting enough employees to be able to roll the cigars. Being able to pay for those employees. And then, you know, if you were like us and you wanted to start a new factory, the only people that I had to get approval from in Nicaragua was the Nicaraguan government to give me a business license and everything else. In the Dominican Republic, you actually have to go to your peers, which will later be your competitors in the market, and you have to ask them permission to build your factory inside of their economic zone.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure they're not the nicest people in the world all the time.
I have no idea how many denials they do. I don't have any visibility into it, but the idea that I have to go through that, and what they did is they set this up so that they could protect, you know, a bunch of money coming in and basically buying up the whole cigar industry. But in reality, they've locked out competition in a way. So I'll never own a factory in the Dominican Republic unless we buy it from somebody else, because they're not going to let, you know, scrappy people like me and Esteban in to go buy a factory in the Dominican Republic. But when it comes to that, like, you don't put your factory where it's best for your factory. Yeah, you put your factory where it's best for your employees. So if the cigar makers are located in, you know, this district, and that economic zone is in this district, and you have to go through them, you're always going to be disadvantaged by that economic zone having a board that closes out business opportunities for other entrepreneurs. So in some ways, I would actually say that from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if you're looking at getting started in cigar manufacturing, a brand, anything like that, Nicaragua is almost unanimously going to be more beneficial to work with in nearly every category. You know, taxation's taxation, folks. Yeah. You know, so that's just something that exists. But for a lot of reasons, there's going to be less resistance. Yeah.
So what's been some of the headaches that you've kind of experienced?
Oh man, where do you start?
Yeah, I know, because I know it's not the easiest thing just to like, all right, I want to make my own cigar, but then I also want to do a vertical factory and do everything like ourselves.
So like all of that was challenging, but again, I have like the whole Dista family, right? So like I have the best people to take on really big challenges with. What was actually hard, that was pretty much out of our control, was a lot of the things that happened in the United States. You know, right now, Visa and MasterCard are being looked at in some pretty high level lawsuits for basically running a duopoly. We unfortunately found ourselves on the match system. If you haven't heard of the match system before, that is ran by MasterCard, and it's a master list where they can put anyone on that list, and you can't open new bank accounts. You can't get credit card processing. You can't receive the money that your customers have already paid you.
That's wild.
We got put on this list, right? And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what is this list? I'd never heard of it. And we got put on it. I had to hire 4 lawyers, right? It turned out it was a mistake. They said that
It's a big mistake.
It was a mistake on behalf of QuickBooks. They had put us on this list saying that we were committing identity theft. We were not at any time. And they had, nothing supporting that. It was an accident that they had put us on them. It shut down our company for a month.
Yeah.
I had more than, I think, $10,000 or $20,000 worth of product that I had already shipped that was setting in a reserve account at Visa, and they would not give me the money. So meanwhile, I have to use all of my personal finances to go hire a legal team to try to go after QuickBooks as fast as possible. That was April, and I remember speaking with you about it briefly.
Yeah.
So that shut down our company for a month. Then distribution woes. We have a distributor. We do our own distribution on a sheet of paper, and that we do our own invoicing and everything like that. We maintain our own credit card gateways. Whenever it comes to pick, pack, and ship. So that's just people putting cigars in a box and everything like that. We had a previous supplier, didn't work out with that supplier. So many various issues, and had to move all of our product to, the United States. This actually just happened relatively recently. Had to move all of our product to the United States, and in doing so, had to pay all of our advance excise taxes and fees. And that's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. So I would say, the credit card processing and distribution, and we have a great importer record who does fantastic work for us. That's another thing that I've discovered you don't actually need. So one of the things I've learned about this business is anytime people are hiring third-party companies, question why they are hiring them. Do they really need that company, or had that became an industry standard because somebody a long time ago didn't want to deal with it?
Yeah.
And they hired it out. And so there's importer records, which, in the last month, we'll pay, many thousands of dollars to our importer record and service fees. But importers of record really just need registration in a system. You can actually be your own importer of record and do all those services yourself. So there's a lot of these things that we're learning as time goes on that we're gonna continue to bring in house, because we thought you had to pay a third party, So there's so many things to share. I don't know.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot. You're, what is this, year 1?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're still kind of learning the ropes of what to do and what not to do, as of any other business that's just starting off.
Yeah.
It's just you're just kind of going through the headaches of a business owner. And because there's a lot of stuff that you just don't know and that you just learn on the way. Yeah,
absolutely. You gotta, you got to go with it with being a business owner too. You got to realize too that, your approach and your demeanor towards things like day to day affect your entire team. And Esteban's heighteningly aware of that. Of course, he's got a huge team that he's managing in Nicaragua. I'm not there regularly, whenever I always joke with people, I'm like Steve Carell from The Office, running around, because everybody, the whole thing is ran by the Disla family. I'm there. Of course, Esteban plugs me in where I need to be. Of course, I run things around our residency and all of our invoicing and things of that nature. But but it really is one of those scenarios where I get to my best ideas are like, let's get pizza for lunch and things of that nature. You know what I mean? Like when I'm at the factory, but you do have to realize that like as all these like chaos is playing out, you have a problem with logistics, you have a problem with a tax account, you have a problem with whatever. Your own demeanor wears off on the people around you. Yeah. And so if your demeanor towards your work or anything like that is projecting your emotions, you're gonna have your employees responding in kind, right? So you have to be careful with that, because there's like it's tobacco, it's cigars. Like somebody is always after you. Somebody is always trying to it's just so. Hopefully, where Esteban and I are both at an emotional maturity level that day in day out, that kind of shit just really doesn't impact us a whole lot, So, but there's a lot of lessons to learn though in tobacco. There's a lot of lessons. So
we went through the kind of the heartaches, but like you guys have been blowing it out of the water. This last year, and like it's. You guys, like you said, you got a 94 on your cigar rating, and like people are really starting to recognize, this Domain cigar, which is a great cigar. I know it's big here. I know it's big in a lot of other places. And you're how many states now?
Yeah, I don't even know how many states. I haven't counted.
Quite a bit.
A lot.
Yeah. But did you ever did you expect this kind of boom right off the gate, or?
Yeah, so I mean, again, a bit about my background. I mean, I built a lot of startups, and again, like that was in tech and cybersecurity. Move fast and break things is always the mantra, right? So I actually expected twice the number of customers with half the number of orders. Right, that was actually
reversed, didn't it?
And it was the opposite. Yeah. It was half the number of customers with twice the number of orders, which is arguably a better place to be. Yeah. It's arguably a much better place to be. But a lot of that was just projecting the response to a new company launching in, what has been a difficult market for a lot of people. It's been a challenging market. I've heard from other retailers that it's been a fantastic year. I've heard from some that so-so and otherwise. But, we only had growth to achieve. A lot of existing cigar companies, factories, and otherwise out there had to maintain during those downturns. And what I'm really seeing from across the valley in Esteli is basically that sales are down across the board on cigars. However, revenue is up, right? Which is just an indication that the scarcity of certain tobaccos are putting more and more pressure on smaller brands to produce limited edition and one-off cigars, right? And I would say that's certainly what we're seeing at our brokerage. But for Domain Cigars as a brand, I think it's been a fantastic year. I think it really has. I mean, I don't know if in recent times, I don't know of any small company that has really had as much growth or success.
No, you guys blown out of the water. And I think what also helps too is that you came from the retailer side. So you kind of like know what people kind of want, and you're in that market. Not saying like a lot of people don't come from retailer side, but you don't see it often where like someone's behind the counter doing everything, running a store, then they start their own brand. Yeah. Like a lot of times they're like a cigar rep or, something like that you don't ever kind of see the big jump that you did. So you kind of get both sides of it. So how, kind of things work on both sides. So I think that really helps too.
Yeah. I think, building, one of the things that we really wanted was customer relationship management to be a little bit more consistent with modern companies. The risk you have with any industry, especially cigars, is that if you go too fancy, you go too big, too quick, right? You're going to go faster than what the market will allow, and you're going to outpace everybody. So what we really wanted to do was put together a customer portal so that people could go reorder cigars, register.
Awesome.
You guys, portal, your portal. You love the portal. And I know it sounds like for a lot of people watching this that might be in a little bit more modern industry. A customer portal doesn't seem very modern, but having all of our cigars in one place for purchasing, ordering, being able to see invoicing and barcodes and all this type of stuff, tracking numbers and all that, and in a single interface, things of that nature, I think have helped make it easier to work with us. And we actually modeled a lot of, I haven't told many people this, but we modeled a lot of the customer interaction engagement after cosmetics companies, right? Because oftentimes it's, a husband and wife team. And for some reason, the wife always, she always has to get she has to call the cigar companies and order the cigars and everything like that. So I wanted to make that interactive experience closer to what they might be accustomed to already. Just little things like that, I think have actually materially helped us be more organized, and I think that's aided in our growth quite a bit. Oh yeah, quite a bit. So, but yeah, thank you for that. I'm glad you like the portal.
nothing but up from here, man.
Yeah.
So we'll end on this one last question. So, what is you've been in the cigar culture for a while, and now you have your own brand and everything. Sure. So what is, I guess, a few things that you love about the cigar culture?
Love about
because you visit lounges all the time. You're in Nicaragua. You have your own factories. What is it about the cigar culture that kind of brings people toward it? And
there's so many things. Quality of people. I think. The cigar culture, that's a distinctly North American idea, United States idea. And, that was something that came out of, barbershops, speakeasies, libraries. There used to be a lot of places where North Americans would congregate, and it was something that was special about our identity as Americans is that we're from all different creed, all different backgrounds, race, culture, religion, everything. And we have this unique way of being able to come together and talk to one another and level the playing field and elevate the best ideas. And there used to be a lot more opportunities for that in American culture. And unfortunately, for so many reasons, there is very little of that people have access to outside of a cigar lounge. You're not going to find that in a bar, people getting inebriated, having very philosophical ideas about life or otherwise, maybe. I mean, it may not be what you want to listen to, but there's just not a lot of places for that. So I think that's probably what I admire most about the cigar community, what I aspire to partake in most, probably been the most rewarding and fulfilling for me. And look, I mean, I started smoking cigars 18 and going into cigar lounges. There's some guys that I'm 36 now, there's some guys that I have known my entire cigar smoking career. Actually, Joe Stapp, which now works for us down in Florida, he's our rep for all of Florida. I met him my first day walking into a cigar lounge. And we've been friends for more than a decade. And him, cool. Him and I have had lifelong friends as well that have come and passed. Much older gentlemen, but yeah. So I think that's definitely. It's also a reason why I think the cigar's impact on Americana is still early. I think it's still, again, we're a tiny business, right? To 12 billion or so dollar business, and that's an approximate figure, but we're a tiny little industry. So, but I think the impact that the cigar can have through creating a conduit to allow people to talk to one another respectfully and logically, I think I think that's probably one of the most fantastic pieces of it.
I know there was a boom in the 90s, and I think that it's happening again right now. I think more people are kind of not like there's a lot more people coming in and a lot more people kind of getting introduced to cigars, but I think it's more like it's now it's like kind of a cool factor now that people kind of like doing. So, and I think there's a lot of lounges that are doing a good job of it too. Like bringing in new people, bringing in new experiences. So,
well, you do a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, this guy has an event planning book that is.
Sometimes I get tired of it. Yeah.
So many events, but really, I mean, things like that do inspire new people. So you should be proud of that contribution because it's different than what other people are doing. There's a lot of models that work, in this business. A lot of different ways that it can be done. I would say every year, really, as of recent, has been larger than the '90s cigar boom.
Yeah,
90s cigar boom might have been 60 million or so cigars, and the reality is if you go up by an additional maybe 10-20%, we run out of tobacco quick.
Yeah.
Right. So boom years are really defined by did we break 5 and 10%? That's theoretically a boom year, right, in the cigar business. So every year recently it has been that. But what I would strongly urge people to understand is only about 5% of all cigar smokers smoke every day. 95% smoke based on proximity, life event, otherwise. About 95% are not regular, they're monthly or otherwise. One of the important things to grasp onto about what I was saying earlier about the community that is created whenever Americans come together, set down across from one another and level with one another. That is actually what's attractive. Yeah. Right. The cigar is interesting, right? The cigar is, I love cigars. They taste good. There's so many fulfilling things about cigars. But the actual appeal to our culture is not solely the tobacco. We didn't change for anything to create a higher level of attraction as of recent, The reality is America as a whole went through a very difficult time coming out of a pandemic and so on. And that made what we are doing here, leveling with one another, speaking practically with one another with logic, common sense, and not leading with emotion. I think that made cigar culture more appealing to people. Yeah.
Cool.
That's my TED Talk.
I love it. So. Yeah. Hey, so tell people where they can follow you on Instagram and they can get their cigars here and other retailers around here. But
absolutely. So we're here in Shop Lounge, and they're fantastic humidor. It's a beautiful shop. Please come by and visit these guys. Domain Cigars on Instagram, Domain Cigars everywhere else, domaincigars.com. Daniel C. Lance, it's my middle initial C. So Daniel C. Lance, Instagram. I'm on Facebook, all that kind of stuff. You can follow and keep up to date with us there. And then Esteban Disla 01. I don't know how he got a number in his name, but Esteban Disla is co-founder of Domain Cigars. He's on there too. He loves seeing your photos. So if you guys are posting photos of Domain Cigars, whether it's on a story, anything like that, he absolutely loves seeing the U.S. cigar culture. So please post photos for us, Esteban.
Yeah. Well, my friend, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to see all the new stuff coming out. And I'm glad that I'm kind of going along on the journey with you, because I'm glad to have your cigars in here, and it's always been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're happy to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
And before we end, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, make sure you follow us, and we will check you out next week. See ya.
Goodbye, everybody.